Hi, my name is Valentina, I am 26 years old, and 2 weeks ago I received a promotion for which I have been literally exhausting myself to the limit for the past 3 years, day after day convincing not only those around me, but above all myself, that I deserve more, that I can do more, and that I will definitely prove it, not by shouting, not by asking, not by intrigues, but by work, dedication, perseverance, and a willingness to accept even the most thankless challenges that in any other company would probably be considered a bad joke. But this is Ferraro and Partners, the same firm that is spoken of in the industry with respect, with fear, and sometimes with outright hatred, because there, as if in a giant glass aquarium full of predators, they throw you into the water, watching whether you can swim from the bottom, whether you will stay afloat, and whether you will learn not just to survive, but to achieve more, biting off your piece before others bite you off. And before we continue, write in the comments from which city you are watching this video. Enjoy! I work in the strategic marketing department, and believe me, if someone thinks that these are just beautiful presentations and creative meetings with coffee on schedule, they know nothing about real struggle. There are no random people in this company, the lazy or relaxed do not survive here. Because everyone who enters our office in the morning looks like a marathon participant who already at the start feels that he will have to run not 42 kilometers, but all of 100, and that at every turn someone will try to trip him up. Everyone is smart, everyone is hungry, everyone is striving to get to the top, as if their life depended on it, and perhaps in some sense this is true. I came to Ferraro 3 years ago, as a junior analyst, that same newbie who is looked at with slight disdain, like useless furniture, until you start to bring at least some benefit. Making coffee, filing papers, staying up until midnight, typing numbers into reports that no one reads, I did it all without ever losing sight of my plan. I knew that if I stayed longer than everyone else, if I took on projects that even interns ran from, if I nodded and smiled when a stack of paperwork was dumped on my desk on a Friday night, tired and hungry, then I had a chance. I smiled when Simone, my boss, leaned over my desk with an air of indifferent grandeur and handed me her work for the weekend. Casually noticing that everyone else had already left, I bit my tongue when Nestor, smug and witty as if he were in a commercial, took credit for my ideas for a client's campaign platform, confidently delivering them in meetings as if he had done all the research and written every slide in the presentation. I played the game by their rules. I learned not just to work, but to calculate moves, to anticipate the desires of the boss, to anticipate decisions, and so, 2 weeks ago, I stood in front of Simone in her office, trying to maintain external calm, while inside I was screaming, rushing, and ringing, Valentina, we are promoting you to the position of senior marketing strategist, she said, and I had to cling to the armrests of the chair to keep from screaming with joy, jumping up and down, crying, because I knew, this was not just a change on a business card, this was a salary almost half as high, my own office with a door that I could close, and perhaps most importantly, finally the feeling that I meant something, that my name would no longer be synonymous with an executive girl, that now I would be listened to differently. But I also understood something else. I had bypassed those who were no weaker than me, Fulvia, for example, who has been with the company for 5 years and whose MBA even the development director took into account, David, who closed deals with 3 major clients last year, and, of course, Tom. Everyone was sure that he would get the job, because he played golf every Saturday with Henry, the CEO, and me. I am Valentina, who grew up in a small apartment, shared a room with her sister, worked as a waitress, a nanny, and a tutor to somehow pay for college, and now I won. For real, not by chance, not thanks to someone, but because I deserved it. But just as the joy of victory began to wear off, it was time to face a new wave, one that had nothing to do with numbers, KPIs, or reports, my family. It would have been easy if it weren't for Emma, my older sister, who is 28 and has always been the favorite, smart, sweet, successful in her own way. Last year she married Felice, and since then my parents have been blinded by happiness, as if marriage automatically made her a goddess, and so I decided, for the first time in a long time, to do something just for myself. I wanted to celebrate my achievement in a way that would be memorable, not just to get together with colleagues after work, not a glass of wine at home, a real celebration. I reserved 3 fancy tables at Rossini's, an upscale Italian restaurant where even a salad costs as much as a week's supply of groceries. I invited everyone, my parents, Emma and Felice, Grandma Nana, aunts, uncles, cousins, and my dear friends, without whom I wouldn't have been able to endure a single sleepless night. I bought a dress that sparkled like a small revenge on fate, ordered a makeover at a salon where they called me by name, as if I were already someone, and I ordered cards, gold on black, with the inscription, celebrating Valentina's promotion to senior marketing strategist. My friends were genuinely happy for me, Bice, Alda, and Daphne, the same friends with whom I started back in college and who remained my islands of stability in all these career storms. Encouraged me every moment when I, sitting on the floor of my own kitchen among empty boxes of Thai food, was torn between another deadline, a sleepless night, and the feeling that I was behind on everything and that no one needed me. Bice, perhaps more than anyone, knew how much I had invested in this promotion, how long I had been psyching myself up, getting up, stumbling, getting up again and moving forward. My colleague Nestor, the one who always pretended that I was transparent to him. Even he seemed impressed when I told him about the party, and this was unexpectedly pleasant, because before, the most you could get from him was an approving nod without looking. But my family, I had hopes for them, too. I believed that this time they would be able to see in me not just the youngest daughter who had always been in the shadow of the perfect Emma, but a woman who had achieved her goal, despite everything. 3 days before the party, I was sitting in my apartment, going over the last preparations in my head. Who else needed to be reminded of the time, whether the dress needed to be picked up from the fitting, whether everything was confirmed at the restaurant, when suddenly the phone rang. It was Bice. I smiled, thinking she wanted to discuss the dress code, or ask if she could bring someone else. "Hey, girl, how are you?" her voice said, but there was something off about it. Something that made my throat suddenly go dry. "Valentina," she began, and her voice suddenly became careful, tense, as if she was choosing each word. "I need to tell you something. I was at that little coffee shop on 5th today, you know, the one with the blue awning." I knew immediately what she meant, and nodded almost automatically, even though she couldn't see it. I saw Emma, and she wasn't alone, Valentina, there was a guy with her, and it wasn't Felice. My ears began to ring. "Are you sure?" Maybe it was a coworker, maybe a client, you know, a doctor, from the clinic where she works. I tried to brush it off, but I knew that if it were that simple, Bice wouldn't have called in that voice. They kissed. Valley, for real, it wasn't an innocent kiss, it was a kiss between people who sleep together, and I know that guy. It's Gioele, her ex, remember? Of course I remembered, Gioele Ferraro, unrelated to my work, but with a last name that now smelled bitter. They'd been dating for almost 2 years, until that scandalous fight after which Emma seemed to have erased him from her life. She'd cried on my lap, sworn that he was a traitor, that he'd cheated on her, that she never wanted to hear his name again. That's when she started dating Felice. I was silent. "Are you sure?" I whispered, already knowing what I would hear. "Yes, Valley, I took the video because I thought, well, you should know. I'm sending it to you now." My body felt numb. When the phone vibrated with a new message, I took it with trembling hands, as if there was something poisonous in it. The video was everything, uncut, Emma, with her golden hair, sitting at the table by the window, laughing, leaning forward, and then Gioele, with that same smirk and that annoying beard, reached out and kissed her. Long, slowly, confident. It wasn't a greeting or an innocent brush of lips, it was a kiss that hid nothing. I felt sick. My sister was married, just a year and 2 months ago. Our entire family had danced under the white garlands at her wedding. Mom had cried tears of happiness. Dad had given the toasts he'd written down the night before as if he were delivering them to the Queen, and now she'd betrayed all of that. I sat on the couch with the video in my hand, unable to decide what to do. Part of me, the one that always acted on impulse, wanted to dial Felix right then and there, tell him everything I'd seen, throw this bitter truth off like a heavy weight. The other part of me, the one that had learned at Ferraro and Associates to keep quiet, to pretend nothing had happened, to focus on the goal, begged me to shut up. This wasn't my story, this wasn't my marriage, this wasn't my lie. I didn't betray Felix. I didn't owe him anything. I had the most important night of my life ahead of me, and I wasn't going to let my sister ruin what I'd worked so hard to prepare with her latest drama. I chose silence. The next morning, I brewed a strong coffee and dove into work, crossing off everything that needed to be done before the party. The restaurant confirmed the reservation, the chef promised a special cake design, and I had almost memorized the thank you speech so as not to get lost in the excitement. And then the phone rang. "Mom, Valentina, dear, you need to come home tonight, we need to discuss something." There was something in her voice I hadn't heard in a long time, neither accusation nor complaint, but rather anxiety. "What? What happened?" I began, but she cut me off. "Just come at 7, Emma will be there too," and then she hung up. The rest of the day I tried hard to concentrate, but every minute seemed sticky and viscous. What the hell was going on? As soon as 7 struck, I was already standing outside my parents' house. Emma's car was parked at the curb. As if nothing had happened, I took a deep breath and walked in. "Valentina," Mom called me from the living room, her voice sounding gentle but somehow strained, as if something more, something alarming, was hidden under the softness. "Sit down, darling." Emma was already sitting on the couch, nervously rubbing her thigh with her palm, and I noticed how her fingers, almost mechanically, were fiddling with her wedding ring, taking it off and then putting it back on, as if the ring was preventing her from breathing or, on the contrary, keeping her from falling into the abyss. Dad was sitting in his usual chair, a stern expression on his face, his arms crossed. Everything about him betrayed a certain position, formulated in advance and not subject to doubt. Mom patted the empty seat next to Emma with a tight smile, but I sat down, leaving a bit of space between us, both symbolic and physical, because I could already sense that I was about to hear something unpleasant. "What's going on?" I asked, looking into my mother's eyes, then looking at my sister, trying to read something in her face that would help me prepare. Emma looked from Mom to Dad to me again, her eyes filled with worry and hope, as if she knew she was about to say something wrong but was hoping for forgiveness before she finished. "I have news," she said, her voice quiet, almost scared, and in that second I thought she was going to confess about Joel. Confess what I already knew, and maybe explain it all away. "I'm pregnant," she blurted out. I blinked, my brain shut down for a second. "What?" I asked, not believing it. "I just found out yesterday," Emma continued. "It's been 6 weeks." My first reaction wasn't what I would have expected. Suddenly, all the resentments that had been building up and coiling inside me melted away for a second. The thought of being an auntie punched a hole in my sarcastic armor, and I felt joy, albeit mixed with other feelings. "That's great, Emma," I said, smiling weakly. "Congratulations," and I really meant it. "Thank you," Emma said, but her expression was still worried. Mom cleared her throat and spoke in her businesslike, slightly mock-sweet tone. "Valentina, we invited you here because we've been talking and thinking. We think it would be great if you shared your party with Emma." It took me a moment to understand the meaning of the words. "What do you mean, share?" I asked, feeling something inside me tighten like a string about to snap. Dad leaned forward, as if joining in the conversation. "Well, you've already planned and paid for everything," he began with unbearable logic. "It would be perfect to celebrate both your promotion and Emma's pregnancy at the same time." Emma immediately picked up, with that intonation that always sounded like, "Well, you know, it would save me a lot of trouble. It's really hard for me to organize everything right now." "Well, you don't mind, do you?" I looked at them, and it seemed to me that I didn't hear, but saw, how their voices turned into writing on the wall. So simple, so obvious, so indifferent to my efforts. Of course, to turn my evening into her triumph. Of course, actually, I mind, I said, and my voice was even, quiet, but there was already a hint of steel in it. "This is my party, I planned it, I paid for it, I invited the guests. It was supposed to be a celebration of my achievement." My mother immediately cringed, and on her face appeared that expression I knew from childhood, a mixture of disappointment and condemnation, which she wore when I did not agree to what someone else wanted, especially if that someone was Emma. "Valentina, don't be selfish, this is about family," she said, and at that moment Emma began to cry. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and she sobbed so earnestly that perhaps someone else would have given in immediately. "I can't believe you wouldn't do this for me, Valentina. I'm pregnant. This is the most important thing that has ever happened to me," she breathed, as if convincing me, or maybe herself. Dad shook his head. "You're being unreasonable. Emma is carrying our first grandchild." I felt something crunch inside me, all the things I'd spent years swallowing, bending inside myself, shoveling away so I couldn't breathe. "You know what?" I said, "That's exactly what you do, always. Everything revolves around Emma." "When is my birthday, Mom?" I asked, and Mom froze. As if she hadn't expected this turn of events, December 20th, she murmured, "That's right, and every year you combine it with Christmas, every year you promise something special this year, and then it turns into a potluck with turkey and fairy lights, and you throw Emma a weekend-long celebration, or remember when I made honor roll at prom? And you threw Emma a dinner because she had a date to prom, or when I got into college? We didn't go anywhere because Emma had a cold, and everyone stayed home with her." Mom stood up, probably trying to stem the tide, but I couldn't. "You're being dramatic," she said. "We've always supported you." "No," I said, "you've always supported Emma. And now you want me to give her this party, too." Dad's face turned red. "Young lady, you need to change your attitude. Family comes first." "Family?" I repeated, and my laugh sounded hollow and broken. "Where was the family when Emma got suspended for cheating, and you still let her go on vacation? Where was the family when she crashed your car, Dad, and you bought her a new one? Where was the family when I worked 3 jobs to pay for school, while you paid for Emma's lavish wedding without hesitation?" Emma was already crying out loud, "Valentina, please. I really need this party, Felice, and I want to announce the pregnancy to everyone." And then everything inside me clenched. Felice's name caused a painful spasm. I remembered the video. I remembered her sitting in the cafe with Gioel, kissing him, laughing, and now she was sitting here asking me to throw a party for her, while she was cheating on her husband with her ex. It was too much. The hypocrisy, the unfairness, this eternal "Emma is always more important" scheme made me feel really sick. You know what? No, I'm not going to share my party. For the first time in my life, I did something truly worthy of a celebration, not a stroke of luck, not a gift, not someone's patronage, but my own work, my persistence, my sleepless nights, my pain, my efforts, and I'm not going to give it to someone else, even if that someone is my sister. My mother gasped, and there was a note of surprise in her voice, as if I had suddenly admitted to burning the family album or stealing my grandmother's ring. "Valentina. Marie, I can't believe you're so selfish," she cried, putting a special weight on each syllable, as if my name were a curse. "I'm tired of hearing that word," I replied, coldly and clearly, and with that I grabbed my purse, stood up abruptly, and headed for the door without looking back. I had a promotion party in 2 days, and it would be exactly as I had planned. No buts, no compromises, no sister stealing the spotlight. If they didn't like it, they shouldn't come. I slammed the door, loudly, decisively, and walked out into the cool evening, shivering not from the cold but from a mixture of anger, disappointment, and an unexpected sense of liberation. On the way home, I was literally shaking from the adrenaline rush, from the realization that I had finally said out loud what I had been hiding deep inside for years, that I no longer agreed to be a backdrop, a decoration in someone else's play. Part of me, still an echo of the old Valentina, felt a slight burning in my chest from guilt for Emma's tears, for the stunned faces of my parents, for allowing myself to step out of the familiar role of a quiet, comfortable daughter. But the larger part of me, the new, acquired, already different Valentina, felt incredible relief and even pride. I did not let myself be erased, did not let myself be made secondary again. At home, I sat on the sofa, hugging the pillow, as if it could be a defense against the growing thoughts, and looked at the phone. The same dilemma was spinning in my head: to call, to apologize, to give in, to do as accepted, as should, as the family wants. This is exactly what the old Valentina would have done, but now I was different. The Valentina who had achieved her own advancement, who had not been afraid to say no to her mother and sister, who had put herself first for the first time, was not going to go back. If they didn't come, so be it. But there would be those who were truly happy for me, and if they did come, they had better be ready to celebrate my success, not someone else's pregnancy. Finally, the day of the party arrived. I woke up early, not because I had to, but because everything inside me was vibrating with excitement, like a string. I took a shower, dried my hair, made an appointment at the salon, where I got a luxurious blowout and flawless makeup, and, putting on my new black dress, in which I felt not just beautiful but confident as never before, I looked in the mirror and saw a woman ready for her evening. I arrived at Rossini early. The tables were already set. Snow-white tablecloths, shimmering crystal glasses, candles and golden candlesticks, everything looked exactly as I had dreamed. The guests began to arrive on time, one after another: Bice, Alda, Daphne, my faithful fighting friends who had weathered more than one career storm with me, my colleagues who knew the value of this promotion, cousins Sarah and Mike, aunts, uncles, Nana, all those who were important to me. Everyone was chatting animatedly, asking about work, congratulating me, reminding me how proud they were of me, and at that moment I felt that everything had not been in vain, but my parents, Emma and Felice, had not yet arrived. At 7:25, when water and the first wine were served, the restaurant door opened and they entered. Mom and Dad looked tense, Emma looked deliberately happy in a tight blue dress. As if the evening were hers after all. Felice, polite and charming as always, put his hand on her back with that mock attention that I now couldn't bear to see without irritation. "Thank you for coming," I said evenly after they had exchanged a quick hello. We all sat down. I seated my parents and Emma and Felice at the main table with Bice and Alda, the rest of us at 2 tables nearby, so that we could talk but still not get in each other's way. The Caesar salad was served, the house special, with crisp leaves, perfectly toasted croutons, and a rich dressing. There was a lively conversation around the table, and I allowed myself to relax. Maybe this would all go smoothly, maybe we could even celebrate properly. When the salad plates were cleared, I stood up with a prepared speech, a neat card that I had signed alone that evening, choosing my words carefully. "Thank you all for being here today. I wanted to celebrate something really important to me," I began, but before I could get 2 sentences out, Emma jumped up. "Before you continue," she interrupted in a clear voice, "I have much more important news." She looked around at everyone with a beaming gaze. "Felix and I are having a baby. I'm pregnant." The restaurant buzzed, someone screamed with joy, someone clapped, my aunts leaned forward excitedly, Nana burst into tears of happiness, my uncles exchanged glances and raised their glasses. There was movement, noise, shouts of congratulations, hugs. The whole room seemed to spin around her, and I stood there, holding the stupid card in my hands, my chest tightening, watching my party disappear, dissolving in the applause addressed to her. Emma turned to me and, barely concealing her triumph, whispered, "Well, since it's your party, I think you should give it to me. A child is more important than a promotion, isn't it?" Mom and Dad nodded. "Emma is right," said Dad, as if passing judgment. "This is more important news." Someone from the family added, "Well, pregnancy is always a joy." My friends were shocked. Bice and Alda looked at me with an expression of pain and anger. "This is wrong," I squeezed out. "You are selfish, Emma. It is mean. I'm pregnant, Valentina," she screamed, and there was no pretense in her voice anymore. "This is the most important thing in the world. This is my party. She is mine now, right, Mom? Maybe you will share it with Emma?" Mom asked, as if she still hoped for a compromise. "No, Emma," I said, my voice full of iron. "I want you, Felice, Mom and Dad to leave my party immediately." Emma's face turned red. She took a step towards me. "You can't kick me out. I'm pregnant. This is my party. I deserve it," she screamed, and her voice broke into hysterics. "Pregnancy is more important than some stupid job." Dad jumped up. "Valentina, let your sister enjoy the moment." Mom stood next to me, looking at me with the same disappointment I knew from childhood. "I think it's time for you to go. You're acting very immature." It broke something in me. It didn't just break me, it tore out the last thread from within that still held my patience, my loyalty, my pathetic hope that the family that had chosen someone else for years would at some point turn to face me. They, my parents, my sister, saw me not as a person throwing a party in honor of their personal victory, but as an obstacle on the way to Emma's triumph, as an annoying obstacle that could be pushed aside, displaced, pushed out the door so that all the attention would go to her again. They wanted me to leave my own party, for Emma, for her future child, so that she could be the center of attention. And you know what?" I said, taking out my phone and feeling my body fill with cold, steely confidence. "Before I go anywhere, I want to show everyone one video. It will be, well, let's say congratulating Emma on her wonderful news." I opened my inbox, found the video Bice had sent, and pushed it full screen. "That was 3 days ago," I said, addressing everyone in the room. "Here's Emma celebrating." I pressed play. The silence was immediate. The video opened full screen, a cozy coffee shop, a blue awning, a table by the window, and there she was. Emma, unmistakable by her dazzling blonde hair, sitting across from a man, leaning closer, laughing, reaching across the table, and, Joel, they were kissing, not like friends, not like acquaintances. It was a long, intense, passionate kiss. The restaurant was so silent you could have heard a pin drop. Emma went pale, as if the blood had been sucked out of her in an instant. Mom's face was covered in red spots, Dad's brow furrowed, as if he was trying not to understand what was happening. Felix froze, his eyes glued to the screen, and there was something in his expression that made me feel creepy. He watched as if the world had ceased to have shape. When the video ended, Felix turned very slowly to Emma. "What is this, the hell?" he said, and his voice trembled in the way that only the most honest emotions tremble. "Rage, disgust, pain, that's an old video." Emma screamed, breaking into hysterics. "It's not real. It's from a long time ago. You had dark hair 3 years ago, Emma," I said calmly, like a surgeon removing a bullet from a wound. "You're blonde now, you edited it. You made it up." Emma shrieked, and then Bice stood up. She stood up slowly but surely, as if she knew that her words would be the final nail in the coffin of this lie. "I filmed this video," she said loudly for everyone to hear. "It's real, I was there, and it wasn't edited. I even remember you walking out and getting into your white Honda Civic, with a license plate that starts with 7G4. Emma's jaw dropped. It was the same car. The entire restaurant watched as her fairy tale fell apart before their eyes. Felice's face darkened. He wasn't asking anymore. He knew. You're a disgusting liar," he said, gritting his teeth. "I've had enough. We've had enough." He turned and ran for the door. Emma, sobbing, ran after him. "Felice. Wait. Please, let me explain." Her voice cracked like fragile glass, her heels knocked on the restaurant floor like blows on the lid of a sarcophagus. The door slammed behind them, leaving an echo. Mom and Dad jumped up almost simultaneously, their faces twisted, not from horror, not from shame, but from anger. "This is all your fault." Mom hissed, "As if I had set the house on fire. You ruined your sister's life." "You are a vindictive, jealous girl," Dad added, and it was clear that at that moment he did not consider me an adult at all. They also ran to the exit, stumbling over their own words, leaving behind a cold, humiliated trail. And then there was silence, real, complete, for about 10 seconds. No one moved, did not speak, only exchanged glances that contained everything: shock, sympathy, bewilderment. "Well, Nana," the grandmother in the corner said loudly, suddenly sitting up and patting her fork on the edge of her plate. "This is the most unusual party I've ever been to." The people at the tables laughed nervously, quietly at first, then louder. The laughter cleared the air, like a flash of lightning before a long-awaited rainstorm. I looked at everyone else, friends, cousins, those aunts and uncles who hadn't run after their parents, and, feeling a strange lightness, raised my glass. "Well," I said, "does anyone want to hear why I got promoted?" There was laughter and applause in response. Bice raised her glass. "To Valentina. To the new senior marketing specialist at Ferraro and Partners." "Valentina," the others chimed in, and just like that, as if by some strange, twisted script, the evening that had almost turned into a farce was mine again. We laughed, we ate, we drank, we told stories. My cousins talked about Emma hiding under the table when she was a little girl and being forced to wash dishes. And Aunt Dolores talked about me starting a family lemonade stand at age 7 with a better marketing idea than half the ad agencies, and everyone at that table wanted to hear about what I did now, what my responsibilities were, and the clients we had on the block. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't in the background, like a supporting character, but like the center of a scene. As the evening drew to a close, around 11, and we began to leave, saying goodnight and laughing, I felt tired. But not in the empty way that comes with something real, with a victory, with a long battle. I was happy, a little dazed, exhausted by all the drama, but honestly, I was also pretty damn proud of myself. I had fought back, I had survived, I didn't give up. I called an Uber. I wouldn't drive to save the world after 4 glasses of wine, and my phone buzzed nonstop the entire way home. Texts, calls, voicemails, I didn't open any of them. Whatever my family wanted to say could wait, until the morning, until the week, or until the end of the world. I didn't owe them a minute of my attention right now. At home, I took off my heels, threw them in the corner, threw off my dress, and sat on the bed. I opened the screen of my phone. 12 missed calls from Mom, 8 from Dad, 15 from Emma. The messages popped up, one after another. "Mom, Valentina, call me immediately, we need to talk about what you did." "Dad, your behavior today was unacceptable." family matters are not public. Emma, you are a monster. Valentina. I hope you are happy, you ruined my life, I never want to see you again. You are dead to me, how could you humiliate me in front of everyone? I looked at the screen, turned off the phone, and went to bed. Let them be alone for one more night with their anger, with their guilt, with their habit of putting me last. I was too tired to be their emotional pillow again. The next morning I woke up with a slight but persistent hangover and a feeling that everything that had happened the night before, the scenes, the screams, the shock on their faces, had not been reality, but some kind of disturbing dream, but it was enough to reach for my phone to return to reality. My screen was littered with notifications, more than 50 unread messages, and still not fully awake. I went into the kitchen, made myself a strong coffee, and, turning my face to the morning sun, decided to start reading. The first few messages were from Mom, the rest were from Dad and, of course, from Emma, and in each of them, with varying degrees of hostility and drama, the same thing was repeated: I am a terrible sister, cold, vindictive, envious, I ruined the most important evening of Emma's life, I destroyed her family, I did all this on purpose, out of jealousy, I am an evil, cruel, ungrateful daughter, I don't value family, I should have kept quiet, kept the secret, kept the illusion, let Emma be happy for at least one night. And, you see, in some twisted logic, they weren't entirely wrong, because when Emma stood up in the restaurant and seriously decided to take my evening, my achievement, my applause, and turn it into a celebration of her pregnancy, when she demanded that I give in, as if I were a subordinate and not the hostess of the event, something inside me snapped, and yes, I took out my phone and showed that video, not out of nobility, not for the sake of justice, and not even because I couldn't stand the lies anymore. I did it because I was hurt, deeply, painfully, to the core, and I wanted her to feel at least some of the pain I'd felt for years. I didn't answer them, not that day, not the next, not the day after that. Life moved on, and fortunately, my new position left no time for mental anguish. A tight schedule, new clients, budgets, presentations, meetings, all of this absorbed me completely, and I gratefully immersed myself in work tasks, because they did not demand an explanation for why you do not want to talk to your parents, did not question your right to your own holiday, and did not call you a monster for defending yourself. A month passed, and then one Saturday evening the phone rang. Grandma, the same one who remained at the table when the others left, the one whose eyes, old but tenacious, saw everything and understood without words. Valentina, darling, I have news, she said, and I immediately became wary. Felix demanded a paternity test, and, Valentina, her voice became quieter, but there was neither surprise nor anger in it, only fatigue. This is not his child. I felt my stomach drop, as if the ground had given way beneath my feet. Yes, I had suspected, but hearing confirmation was like reading a letter in stone. Emma had to confess, she had been seeing Gol again this whole time. Felice is filing for divorce. I sat up, it was as if someone had turned off my spine. And how is she? I forced out, not very, answered Grandma. He kicked her out of the house. Legally, he had the right, the house was his before the marriage, now she's living with your parents again, in her childhood room. She won't get much money in a divorce, cheating negates everything, and the most interesting thing, Grandma added with bitter irony, your mom and dad are still convinced that you are to blame, that if you hadn't shown that video, she and Felice would have worked everything out. I almost laughed, but instead I just shook my head. Worked it out, of course, she was pregnant by another man, and this was sorted out. I'm on your side, said Grandma. Emma made her choice, and now she has to live with the consequences. That's the way it should be. In the months that followed, I heard about them only from her and my cousins. The divorce was finalized quickly, there was almost nothing to divide. Felice wanted nothing more, not her, not an explanation, not a shadow of their future together. Emma returned to her parents' house, and now shared the kitchen and bathroom with her mother, as if she were 16. Again, and Gol? He was in no hurry to propose, he let her sleep over sometimes, but he wasn't going to rent out his apartment and didn't raise the question of living together. No one was surprised. Meanwhile, my parents did not give up trying to influence other relatives. They tried to convince everyone through Aunt Linda, through Uncle Marco, even through Nana, that I had been unfair, cruel, that I had destroyed the family. But the truth is stubborn, like spring, it still grows. Everyone who was at that party Saw it all. They knew Emma was trying to steal my evening, they knew how she acted, they knew who started it, and almost everyone sided with me. The only ones who didn't talk to me were my parents and Emma. Everyone else, my grandmother, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, understood what had happened, that I simply wouldn't let myself be erased again. 6 months passed, I got another promotion at work, not as big as the last time, but still nice. When I told my grandmother, she laughed and said, "Maybe we should have another party? Will you invite your parents?" "No," I said, "and Emma isn't either." "Okay," she nodded, "then you've learned the main thing, don't let anyone steal your light." And the weirdest thing is, I didn't feel a drop of guilt, because Emma had chosen to cheat on me, she had chosen to get pregnant, without knowing who it was. She tried to use my evening as a showcase for her own performance. All I did was pull back the curtain, and let everyone see who she was. My parents can blame me all they want, but she ruined her marriage the moment she kissed Joelle in that coffee shop. I just didn't let Felix live in ignorance and raise someone else's child for the next 18 years. Would I do it again? Yes, without hesitation, because I'm tired of being the one who forgives everything, the one who always gives in. I'm tired of being expected to keep quiet and submit, and every no I make sounds like a crime. Now, on Sundays, I have dinner with my grandmother, we laugh, discuss work, watch movies, I see my cousins, we go for pizza, play board games, joke around. My work friends are closer than some relatives ever were. I'm building a circle of people around me who truly support me, who celebrate my successes, rather than compete with me or try to use my moments for their own needs. Emma can keep her pregnancy and her shaky relationship with Joel, no matter how it ends, and I will keep my promotion, my self-esteem, and those who truly deserve to be around. And you know what I realized? Sometimes you have to lose your family to find your real one. Leave a comment on what you think of this story and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and put a like. See you soon.